One battle after another blew my mind. There was not one boring or dull scene for the nearly 3 hour duration. I like to think it's the incredible directing by Paul Thomas Anderson. This guy never disappoints. That and the incredible cast, which stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, Tiana Taylor, and Chase Infinity. This movie was actually based off of a Thomas Pynchon novel titled Vineland, released in 1990. Except this movie covers a modern anti-fascist resistance group, where the Vineland novel was based off of a 60s counterculture movement protagonist set in the 80s during Ronald Reagan's reelection. Leonardo DiCaprio is, as always, great in this movie. He plays Bob. Bob is a washed-up revolutionary who lives in a state of stone paranoia, surviving off-grid with his spirited and self-reliant daughter, Willa. When his evil nemesis resurfaces and Willa goes missing, the former radical scrambles to find her, as both father and daughter battle the consequences of their pasts. I have to say, the evil nemesis in this case, Colonel Lockjaw, played by Sean Penn, may be the best performance in this movie. He was extremely convincing. He may even get an Oscar for that strange walk he did throughout the entire movie. Benicio del Toro also put on a brilliant performance as well. This movie, while not following the novel it's based on entirely, does resonate for the current times we are living in, regardless of opinion or association. The very few I've seen criticize this movie as woke have no idea that the movie is based off of a novel from over 30 years ago. Paul Thomas Anderson found a way to make this movie entertaining from beginning to end. I first discovered his work when I watched There Will Be Blood. That movie just blew my mind, from the story to the brilliant performances from Daniel Day-Lewis and Paul Dano. It instantly became a classic for me to go back and watch. In an age where we aren't being fed consistently entertaining movies, I think you'll enjoy this movie. Watch it with an open mind. You don't always have to agree with the protagonists in a movie. The point is to be captivated by a piece of art and learn to grow from it. I think Anderson did a great job at that. I should mention the main antagonist group, called the Christmas Adventurers Club, a well-organized white supremacist crime syndicate, was very well thought out. To think there are groups out there that exist like this, super well funded and organized, I don't know if that's in the Vineland novel since I've never read it, but I thought it was well thought out. And it kept me invested as to what that group might do next. If you haven't watched One Battle After Another, I don't think you'll be disappointed. To keep my attention for nearly 3 hours is a feat that is hard to accomplish, especially in an age where we aren't being fed a lot of great movies. I would say the first 20 minutes of the movie are the slowest part, but honestly, a lot happens in that 20 minutes. And your attention span is still, being consistently fed entertainment, even throughout the slow part of the movie. Because the entire movie, you're on that ride. Paul Thomas Anderson, this is where his skill comes in. I've never watched a Paul Thomas Anderson movie where it was slow or I wasn't invested. The whole movie, honestly, it feels like a roller coaster. You go to like a Cedar Point, if you've ever been to the Midwest, you're on this roller coaster and you're on this ride that doesn't stop for such a long duration. You might have only ridden, the ride for 2 minutes, but it felt like you did it for 10 minutes. I don't know. This mind just captivates you. And to think in this modern age that this happens, what was portrayed in this movie is based off the current time, not what happened in the Vineland novel that the movie's based off in the 80s. So it takes the realistic aspects of certain groups. In this case, it's Antifa, some would call it in today's times. But, to think that this stuff really goes on is just also mind-blowing. It really makes you think that we are totally disconnected to the reality that we live in a lot of the times. We live in our own little fantasy, our own little work structure, our own little bubble, and we're just not aware of the huge things that are happening, especially in this day and age over the last few years. Ever since COVID, you could tell that things have just gotten crazy. And I think that this movie, Paul Thomas Anderson's vision was to make it as modern and as real as possible. My favorite performance in this movie, that's really tough. Benicio del Toro was great. Leonardo was great in everything that he does. I don't think I've ever watched a DiCaprio movie where he was bad. So Sean Penn, though, might be the main antagonist. I think his performance, I would say, was the most solid of the entire cast. I mean, his weird sexual innuendo fantasies, without getting into huge spoilers, were enough to convince you that this guy did his homework. He just made you think that he was crazy and seditious and will do anything to get what he wants or do anything to get his revenge. I think that his performance, I would say, is the best. This Christmas Adventurers Club really stuck out to me. I'm like, they were well-funded, the white supremacist group I'm talking about in the movie, without getting into huge spoilers. It's something you'll read about in the description. They were just super well-funded to think that there are these groups that exist. And it's not just white supremacist groups. There are other groups as well. There are religious groups like this, political fundamentalist groups that are well-funded who have the capital to just do whatever, clean hit jobs. In this movie's case, without trying to get censored on here for what I will say. But the movie was very well to do. The people that criticize it as being woke, I never understood that. A lot of these people are looking at it from the antagonist group, in this case, Antifa. They're looking at it through that lens. Paul Thomas Anderson just happened to use this group as an example. And people think that this movie is real political, but it's literally based off of a book. This movie was out before the word woke was being used again, resurfaced, in the early 2020s. So to think that it's super woke or anything, I think is misleading. And that wasn't the point of the movie at all. It was literally a reimagination of a novel based off of a postmodernist, writer, Thomas Pynchon. I mean, that's clearly what it was. And if you go into the movie with an open mind, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. Are there crazy, bizarre stuff that happens in this movie? Absolutely. It's off the chains. Like it really was bizarre. Some of the violence, but it's also a reflection. Art reflects society. Society reflects art. In this case, the art in this movie reflects society. In an age of consistent, demonstrations, political strife, division, chaos, economic chaos, I think that the movie resonated with the current climate that we're in. And if you go in there with an open mind and you just want to be entertained, I think this movie will deliver on every single front. And so if you've watched this movie, let me know in the comments what you thought. I'm curious to know. I'm curious to even have a well thought out analysis of what you witnessed during the movie, something that showed that some homework or some study was involved, because this movie would make you critically think. I know this movie made me critically think. I think the idea for me was to go in with an open mind because I liked Paul Thomas Anderson's movies in the past, see what happens, and then, take it from there, do a review on it from there. And I have to say, from beginning to end, super entertained. The last time I went to the movies, besides this movie, and enjoyed myself, was going to see Wicked. Now, you could say that the last few movies to come out that were big, I wasn't invested enough to go and try them. It was except for Superman, and I like Superman, but I'm not going to say it was the best superhero movie I've ever watched. So I would say Wicked was the last great performance I went to watch, and that was a musical. But this movie reminded me of what movies used to be like: consistent from beginning to end, well acted, well directed, great soundtrack. And I forgot to mention the humor. This movie is actually quite hilarious. There's a lot of dramatic and action sequences, but the movie is freaking hilarious. There's tons of funny moments throughout this movie. What did you think of one battle after another? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious to know your thoughts. If you liked what you watched here, please feel free to subscribe to my channel, where I plan on doing more movie reviews, pulp culture talk, television show reviews, and book reviews. Again, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll subscribe to my channel for more content. Thank you so much.